This is a face-to-face Unit 2 review. Determine the validity of each of the following arguments. Use either a truth table or logical reasoning. All right, I'm going to show both. So the first thing we have to do, though, is we got to change these words into symbols. So let's check the first one. We go ice skating or we go skiing. So I'm going to let P equal we go ice skating and Q is we go skiing. So this is P or Q. We do not go skiing is negation Q. And then the therefore tells me that I have my conclusion. We go ice skating is P. So if I use a truth table, I'm going to do P, Q, and then I'm going to do premises 1, which is P or Q. And I'm going to let myself know that that's P1. Okay, and then I have P2, which is negation Q. And then my conclusion is just P. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw my 4 rows. And I'm going to fill this out. So again, P is true, true, false, false. And Q is true, false, true, false. Now I'm going to write P again, true, true, false, false. And then the or symbol. And then Q is true, false, true, false. So I have an or. The only time or is false is when both are false, which happens in line 4. Otherwise, it's true. Okay. So P1, let's just put this down here. I'm going to need P2 and the conclusion as well. So let me just set this thing up so it'll be a little bit easier. Okay. Again, 4 rows, because we're just going to copy down what I just got and put it in P1. Okay, so what I just got in P1 was true, 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 false. Now P2 is negation Q. So I'm going to negate the Q column, which is true, false, true, false. So negation of that is going to be false, true, false, true. So I'm going to write that down. False, true, and P2. And finally, the P column is just true, true, false, false. And that's good. Okay, now I look through each row in that second truth table that I made. If I find a false in the row in either P1 or P2, I cross the whole row out. Row 2 I'm going to leave alone because P1 and P2 are true. Row 3, I have a false in P2, so I'm going to cross the whole entire thing out. And in row 4, I have a false in P1, so I'm going to cross it all out. So now that just leaves me with row 2, so I have to analyze. Now remember, for an argument to be valid, I have to have 2 true premises with a true conclusion. And I do in this case. So this argument is valid. Okay, if you match this up, so I'm going to highlight P or Q, negation Q, therefore P, that matches up with disjunctive syllogism, which that's not really a choice, so we're going to pick A, but it should be disjunctive syllogism. Okay, all right, so that was number 24. And by the way, if your argument matches up with disjunctive syllogism, that means the argument is valid. So let's look at this one. Here's the second one. If you are sick, then you stay home. You stay home, therefore you are sick. So you are sick is going to be P. You stay home is going to be Q. So in line 1, I write that up as P, then Q. You stay home is Q. Therefore, has the word therefore, so I know we're in for the conclusion, you are sick. Okay, so I have P, then Q, Q, therefore P. So again, if I do the truth table approach, I'm going to do P, Q, then I'm going to take on premises 1, which is if P, then Q. Then premises 2 is Q. And then the conclusion is P. So again, I only have 2 letters, so therefore I'm going to have 4 rows. So row 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I start this off the same way, true, true, false, false. Q is true, false, true, false. Now I write down the P column again, which was true, false, true, true, false, false. I almost screwed that up. Then true, false is Q. So the only time the conditional is false is when I start with something true and back it up with something false. Otherwise, it's true. So line 1 is true, line 2 is false, line 3 is true, and line 4 is true. Okay, and then P2 is just a Q column, so true, false. And the conclusion is P, which is true, true, false, false. Okay, so I'm going to write this out, P1. I'm just copying down what I got, just so it's a little bit clearer. You could use your original, but I don't like to do that just because, like I said, it's clearer if you just transpose everything. So I'm just going to copy down what we got for P1, P2, and the conclusion in this little table here. So all I'm going to do is just write what I found from that one. So P1 was true, false, true, false. It's true, false, true, true. And then let's go ahead and look at P2. P2 is true, false, and P, or the conclusion, was true, true, false, false. Okay, so again, I'm going to look through each row, and I'm going to look at premises 1 and 2. If I find a false anywhere, I'm going to strike the row. So row 1, I have P1 being true, P2 being true, I'm going to leave it alone. Row 2, I have a false, so I'm going to kick it off. Row 3, I don't have any falses in P1 or P2, so I'm going to leave it alone. And in row 4, I have a false in P2, so I'm going to cross off the row. So that leaves me with row 1, which is fine because I have 2 true premises with a true conclusion. However, in row 3, I have 2 true premises, but my conclusion is false. So when that happens anytime in the table, the whole thing is invalid. Okay, so now let's go and do the different method, which was to look at what this matches up. So I'm checking out right here. So I'm looking for if P then Q, Q therefore P. And that is the fallacy of the converse. So if it matches the fallacy of the converse, your argument is invalid. Think of the word fallacy, it means not true, right? So again, fallacy of the converse would be D. Okay, all right, 25. Select the conclusion that can be logically deducted from the given premises. If Hillary owns a house, Hillary will pay property taxes. Hillary owns a house, therefore. Okay, so Hillary owns a house is P. Hillary will pay property taxes is Q. So if I write that up, I have if P, then Q. Hillary owns a house is P. Now we want the conclusion. So I'm going to look at the table and find if P then Q, P, therefore. And if I looked at direct reasoning, I will see that the conclusion to this is Q. Because if P then Q, P matches up to direct reasoning in the chart of common arguments. All right, so we need to write out what Q is. So Q is Hillary will pay property tax. So out of those choices, That is C. So the answer to this one is C. Okay, and that's the end of your review. Thanks for watching. Whoops. Come on.